Welcome to my podcast. My name is Corrinala. I come to you from the Pacific Northwest, where I live with my partner, our 2 kitties, and 2 adopted Mustangs. Information about the Wildhorse adoption program will be in the episode description box. This podcast covers knitting projects, my horsemanship journey, and my other passions like vegetable gardening and bicycling. If you're new here, I hope you find the content interesting. If you're a returning viewer, it's always great to have old friends. The format of this channel typically includes musings on an early walk to the barn to feed the horses, then knitting content, some catch up on the horsemanship journey, and finally more musings or maybe a little bicycling footage if I was lucky enough to get out. Enjoy, and I hope to see you soon. Good morning, friends. Welcome to this episode. I think it's 191. It is Friday, March 6th, 2026. I tell you, friends, it has been a week. So this first week of March was the return to office. And when I was hired at my current employer in early 2023, my job was classified as mostly remote, which is good because I live far away from the office. I live in the Puget Sound, and getting to the metropolis is a challenge on a good day. So typically I had gone to the office maybe once or twice a month, which isn't too bad. But since we have a new executive, putting on my boots for the walk out to the barn. What if I let you listen to the birds for a minute? I hope you enjoyed that little interlude of spring-like birds. Anyway, when we got a new executive in November, part of his agenda was, I guess, better government. And for him, that means return to office despite all the agreements that were made to employees who work mostly remotely. And it's, of course, caused a lot of consternation because it was applied across the board, which doesn't always make sense to all the employees. Like, for example, my 2 colleagues, their teams work out in the field. So, and I have no team. My program is a team of 1, and that is me. So the 3 of us are required to go to the office, which is essentially empty, and it's fun to hang out with each other. I like going to the office because I really like my colleagues. I do not like traffic. Traffic is terrible. It takes me an hour if I leave at 5 a.m. in the morning, and nothing bad happens traffic-wise on the freeways. It takes me an hour and a half to 2 hours on the way home. And, since I have to go in a couple times a week, that definitely takes up like at least 5 or 6 hours that I used to have to myself, not to mention lunchtime I could spend with the horses. So, and to be fair, for everyone who has to work in an office and maybe has a half-hour commute each way and works 5 days a week, that's 5 hours. Understood. So it's just a big change, and change is hard. What does that mean for horses and knitting? Well, it means I don't get to knit first thing in the morning 2 days a week. So not a tragedy. Horses, I get less time with them, and Odin needs his physical therapy for his rehab. So I'm having to kind of rethink when I'm doing that. He didn't get much this week because it was pouring down rain on Wednesday. Neither one of us felt like doing those exercises. Morning, boys. It's a little drizzly today. So I will have some horsemanship updates. I will have some knitting updates. Of course, I have a new cast on because why wouldn't I? And what else do I want to talk about? Oh, Randy and I took a nice, had a nice outing last Saturday. It was beautiful weather, and I should have some pictures from that hopefully. But I'm going to get to feeding right now. Well, this is take 3 of the knitting and sort of life catch-up part of this episode. I hope you have something nice to drink. I'm working on my second cup of tea, which is a big improvement from the cup of coffee I had yesterday on the commute to work, because I don't drink a lot of coffee, and I stopped at Starbucks, and quite honestly, fully caffeinated coffee, and maybe Starbucks in particular, really curls my hair. So it was an intense day yesterday. Got some last minute news at work that I needed to respond to, and so I was working on that this morning. So super exciting, and I will have to get back to it, but not for a while yet. So let's talk about knitting, shall we? Because we don't want to talk about other stuff here right now, except maybe some horsemanship. That'd be okay. First of all, I did shut the door behind me. The cats have been squabbling. They started squabbling last night. I think there was an outside cat on the deck that got everyone excited, and it's interesting when they are upset about something outside, they turn on each other. I don't quite understand that, but they do that. So, and they're still in this sort of squabble mode. I think at least one of them got up on the bed with us last night, but there were definitely 2 squabbles. Randy broke up the first one, and I broke up the second one. And so that, on top of caffeine, meant, not a super great night of sleep, but good enough. So what am I wearing? This is the LoveNote. It's the second one I knit. So I call it the LoveNote 2. It is out of a lovely pale blue hand-dyed yarn by Nativity, and a skein of mohair held together. I find that a bit itchy, so I have to wear a shirt underneath it. Sometimes I just wear like a sleeveless shirt with a collar. Mostly it just impacts me around my neck where it gets itchy. It can be super warm, although today it's kind of drizzly and rainy out, and it feels perfect. And these are the kind of elbow length sleeves, because I was playing Yarn Chicken. I think the original pattern has at least bracelet sleeves, and the other one that I wear, that I knit and wear, also has the longer. I think it goes to my forearm, but as I've mentioned before, I tend to like my sleeves a little bit on the short side. What else is going on? Interestingly, I noticed that I have the same socks on today as I did last Friday when I podcasted. So I have the Winter Arctic Light socks, which is a self-drafted pattern after the Pacific Knit Co. doodles. I took a class at Fiber Fusion Northwest last June and learned how to use her motifs and put them together
to make a cohesive pattern. So hope you if you check out my project page, I hope you enjoyed that. I showed the sock. I think I actually took off the sock last week and showed it. They are kind of a DK weight. Also, I want to say about the DK weight socks. I was last week, well, I was in the laundry room getting ready to go out to the barn. I was contemplating giving away my heavier socks, like the DK weight socks that I've knit, and the heavier fingering weight ones, like the ones I showed last time were knit out of a Patton's Croy skein, 2 skeins that come in 50-gram skeins. Anyway, I found a use for them, and I will talk about that later in the life stuff. So what am I still working on? I am still working on the Purr-fect socks by Charlotte Stone. I had a half-finished object last week. I did cast on the cuff for the second sock. Still working on the cuff. Haven't got very far. Didn't have a lot of knitting time this week, to be honest. Still working on the 100-acre wood blanket, KF Jones. So I keep promising I would show that when I have the 3rd stripe done. I'm getting very close. It's, I think I am 1.5 squares away from that. So maybe if I do get a little daytime knitting time this weekend and next week, hopefully I'll be able to show that next time. Surf wax socks, I haven't worked too much on that. So I am, so those are just kind of languishing. So I didn't bring those up to show. What I did bring are the projects that I've been mostly working on. And this one in this bag, made by my husband with his industrial sewing machine, is the Sock Arms Cardigan. That's the pattern. I'm making it into a pullover. So I've been working on this fairly regularly. So I decided I was knitting it as a top-down cardigan. And then when I got to this point, like joining under the arms, I decided I wanted to make it a pullover. So it's going to have a slight V-neck. I'm envisioning that this will have some ribbing that might overlap and kind of close this gap a little bit. The sock arms are going to be in this Freckled Whimsey colorway, self-striping Jeepers Creepers. So the main body is Knit Picks Gloss, a fingering weight yarn that I don't believe has any nylon in it. So it does make good, nice garments. And it is in the colorway Clarity. So that's what I'm doing with that. I plan to do the sleeves and the ribbings in the Jeepers Creepers, at least the ribbing around the neckline. The bottom part, the bottom ribbing, I will most likely do in this this light blue colorway, Clarity. So I am just about done with the second ball of yarn, and I have 2 balls left, so I think I'm going to have plenty for the ribbing. I had a new cast on last week, and this is for the Andrea Mowry knit along. That's from March through May. And this is in a bag made by my mom with this cute kitty fabric, like Herbert and Harley when they are cute and not squabbling with each other and tearing each other's fur out and making very loud noises. So I am making the Traveler. Originally I was going to make the Crew. I am considering making the hooded version, and that sort of changes some of my Stashdown plans. So last week I just barely had the ribbing. I had the gauge swatch done and the ribbing done. So the ribbing is in this Cascade 220. It's a sport weight yarn. It is I don't think the colorway has a name. I'm calling it Rust. And then the main body, which is this kind of cool repetitive pattern, it's very easy to follow, is also in Cascade 220, a sport weight yarn that is a variegated yarn. So I am, look at this kind of neat detail on each side. It has this slip stitch that definitely makes like a side seam. So what I am thinking of doing, this is repurpose yarn. I've tried to make a couple projects with it unsuccessfully. I have quite a bit of both, but not enough of one color or the other to do the whole thing just in the one color. So I'm thinking of doing the hood in this rust color. So, because I think I'll have enough yarn for the body and the sleeves in this variegated yarn. And then we'll use the rust color for the hood and the ribbing. And I think it'll tie it together very nicely and make a nice kind of pullover. So I'm knitting a fairly small size because my gauge is always a little bit bigger, and I don't like terribly oversized sweaters. I tend to not wear them. I like them more or less fitted, so that, because I'm a pretty active person, so even though I have a desk job, I do like to get up and do things, and I just don't like my clothing to be terribly sloppy and getting into things, whether I'm cooking or putting together bread dough or doing something with the horses. I like it to stay put so it doesn't get messed up or ruined in a way. So I'm just going to talk about the needles. I feel like I'm using a US size 4 for both of these pullovers. Is that correct? I considered, because my gauge was bigger, I tried a gauge swatch in a smaller needle, and I didn't like it. So I decided to use the US size 4 and that it is called for, and then do a little math to make the gauge match the size that I want. I don't know if you can hear the cats. I'm going to go interrupt that. Okay, now where were we? So I had to separate the cats because they are still having a lot of tension and still picking on each other for reasons I do not understand. So, I know I was talking about the Traveler, and I was talking about needle size. They're both the same needle size. I was talking about doing some math to meet the size that I want. The Traveler is supposed to have a lot of ease, and I don't need to reiterate that I like generally very little positive ease or no ease. So that brings me to my new cast on. Why I needed a new cast on, I don't know. It's just what happens. So this is a bag also made by my mom. This is quilted, has a zipper in it. I use this bag all the time, and I cast on the Lemontop socks. I'm using a US size 0 magic loop. I don't think I've gotten very far. I think I've done the ribbing and gotten into the pattern. Let me see if I can pull this out without pulling any needles out or anything. I think I wanted a transportable project is really why I did this, an easy transportable project. The other two socks the patterns are in books, and it's not always easy to, carry a book around. So the main color is this colorway, Freckled Whimsey. It's called Phoenix Tears, and this was part of the Harry Potter colorway. So yeah, I haven't got very far. So the contrast color is this really pretty kind of yellowish color. And so I just finished the ribbing, and then just barely started on the pattern. So haven't made too much progress with that. I don't anticipate working on this too much. I think the real reason why I did this is because we are leaving to visit Mom and her husband in Texas a week from this Sunday. So this will be nice airplane knitting. And sitting around in Dallas-Fort Worth airport while we have a long layover. I may cast on another one, or I may bring one of these projects. If I'm going to bring any project, it's going to be the Traveler, because that one is a knit along, whereas I don't have as much motivation to finish the sock arms cardigan pullover. So that's that plan. I am very tempted to cast on a t-shirt, and last week I showed the crochet project that I was considering. I probably won't take that, although it would be tempting, because sometimes crochet is a nice way to do something simple. We'll see. Stay tuned. I should have more about those plans next time. That is the knitting part of this. So sorry this was so disjointed and there was a lot of work stuff in it, but you know, that happens. Work is life, and work is part of life, I guess I should say. We had beautiful weather last weekend. So Randy and I went up to kind of the North Cascades Pass, I guess would be the best way to describe it. The gate is always closed for the winter. The highway's closed. There's a gate across the highway to close it for the winter because it's a high elevation pass. I think it's around, it's either 4,000 or 5,000 feet, which 5,000 feet sounds really high for this state. But, you know, we get a lot of, we're high latitude, so we get a lot of snow. And there's a lot of avalanche paths through that pass, which is very risky for the road crews to keep that pass open. So as far as I know, it's never been open all winter. We haven't had a lot of snow this winter yet. It's been fairly dry. In fact, I think it's one of the driest in like 40 years or something like that. 40 years. Anyway, Randy and I optimistically loaded up our snow bikes, which are fat-tired bikes that we can ride on snow and sand, and drove up there only to find that there was no snow at the gate. So we took advantage of where we were and the weather, and we went for a really lovely hike down to Ross Lake, which has a big dam. It's part of the hydroelectric project on the Skagit River, and had a really nice time. We walked down to the boat launch, and then we walked back up, back up and over and around to the dam, walked across the dam, and there's a resort. It's a floating resort that's been there since the 40s or 50s. It started out as a logging camp, and now it is a resort for tourists. So that was really fun. We had a nice lunch, and it was a really lovely hike, which brings me to those heavier weight socks, hiking socks. Now, why didn't I think of that? And one of the reasons why I opted for those is because I was looking for a pair of the commercially made hiking socks, and I couldn't find any. So apparently I've worn holes in them and tossed them. So I'm using my DK and my heavier fingering weight socks for that. And it worked great. So they fit in my hiking boots. They feel like hiking socks, and they don't have the elastic around the top, which just like squeezes the bejeebers out of my calves. So it worked great. And they're wool, so they're perfect. Gardening update. So with the return to office, I don't foresee myself terribly invested in a garden like I have in the past. I mean, I will plant things because I can't help myself. I will plant potatoes. I'll plant tomatoes because who can resist fresh vine ripened tomatoes. I will plant cucumbers and a zucchini, of course, because those are all, I mean, once they're established, they're all pretty low maintenance, so don't have to do much with those. I'm not going to plant any like eggplant or anything like that. For one thing, Randy doesn't like it, and it's hard to be successful growing eggplant in the Pacific Northwest, even if we do have long, nice days in the summer. There's just not enough of them. And then greens. Greens are pretty easy. I mean, my greens overwinter, so I have kale and chard and beets. So, and cabbage overwinters, kohlrabi can overwinter. So it may be more of a scattershot garden than I usually do. So we'll see. And I should have asparagus coming up. I haven't really been out there to check yet. In fact, I think it's a little early yet. And of course, the forecast shows mixed rain and snow next week. So we do tend to get winter in March. What else? Oh, horsemanship. So I didn't get a lot of chance to work with Odin and do his physical therapy exercises like I was supposed to, but I got a call from the vet yesterday afternoon who watched a video that I had sent her late last week. And she definitely thought he looked better. And I agree. I think he feels better too, because something startled him a few days ago and he went, sort of bucking and snorting and running, which he hadn't done in a while. So definitely think he's feeling better. The exercises are working. And so she just encouraged me to keep doing that and then keep him on his prescription medication for now. And then also just started a supplement that she has seen success in other horses. Big news is Bragi went for a trailer ride last week. Woohoo! So first trailer ride, he was, he got in the trailer great. My trainer did all the, make sure he was okay with everything, if she asked him to come forward in the trailer, he did. He was very quiet about that. Of course, when we shut the door, he got very nervous. We just took our time. I drove very carefully around the block. He was very quiet in there, probably completely petrified, but not scrambling, kicking, or doing anything really disruptive. And when we got back home, the drive lasted maybe 10 minutes. He waited for instructions to back out. So when we opened the door, he didn't rush backwards or anything like that. He waited for my trainer to untie him. Actually, she untied him before she opened the door, and then I held the lead rope through the front window of the trailer. So all that to say, it went very successfully. He was very sweaty, but he backed out like a gentleman. He didn't get scared, and she let him graze for a little bit, and then he was done. So the test today is to see whether he'll get back in the trailer or whether we're going to have to take a few steps back and slowly reintroduce him to it. So I think that's all I have for now. I'm looking at my notes. I haven't been able to keep up on the videos, horse training videos that I've been watching. So I'm just stockpiling those for a rainy day, which today's a rainy day, but I'm going to need to get working again. So with that, I bid you a fond farewell, and we'll catch up next time. Take care, everyone.